Welcome to Chilling with me, Tom Gamer, and I'm delighted to say joining us tonight is First Eleven's Chris Clancy, but also, and more importantly, RAF reservist and WRC co-driver Phil Hall. Now, Phil, you have been incredibly busy over the, 3 lockdowns we've had this year. You haven't quite been in a rally car, but you've been doing all things esports. But before we get to that, just tell us about your journey, because it's been absolutely fascinating, from RAF to reservist to WRC co-driver. I think the average layman would love just one of those opportunities. You managed to marry them together.
Yeah, so I started rallying when I was 12. I did that for a long time. And then I joined the Royal Air Force as a sort of full-time service person. The RF is hugely supportive of sport, so they talent spotted me and gave me quite a lot of support throughout my career with them, to the point where I was given the opportunity to go professional as a co-driver in the World Rally Championship, which I did in 2015. But I didn't really want to leave my Royal Air Force roots behind, so I remained as a reservist. And since then, from 2015 to date, I've been competing in the WRC, except, as you said, for the last year, where, well, there hasn't been an awful lot going on, really, has there, because of lockdowns and things like that, all three of them. So instead of that, I've started to be much more involved in the esports and gaming side of motorsport. I compete in various championships on loads of different platforms, including Royal Air Force ones, and particularly on like dirt rally and some racing platforms. But I would say I'm particularly focused on the rallying side.
So you must be itching to get back in the seats. I think if it was me, I'd be itching not to get in that seat. Co-drivers are a different breed, aren't they? Because you're going to sit in a car with somebody alongside you that is going to drive at absolutely breathtaking speeds and try not to, injure the pair of you, trying to get to the end of the stage. I've just seen the first day of Monte Carlo's thrown up a few surprises. What's it like as a co-driver, and do you have that fear, or is it just me being me?
There's no, I think if anyone said that they weren't scared at any point in a rally car, they're probably lying. But it's managing that fear and putting it into something useful. And I wouldn't say it's like the kind of terror where you stop functioning. It's just recognizing that there is risk involved here and accepting it, and knowing that as long as you do your job really well and you trust the person next to you to be doing their job really, really well, that's the best you can do. And you both got a goal in mind, and that goal is to be the fastest people down that particular bit of road, and you just suck it up and get on with it. The risks in rallying are not necessarily that high. The cars are very, very safe these days. We've got loads of safety equipment. So for me, it's a huge rush being sat in the car. It's a great feeling to have a successful partnership where the driver is driving purely off what they're hearing from you and the very limited vision they have. I mean, competing at night and in the fog and things like that, that's some of the best times to be a co-driver, because that driver is just absolutely relying upon you, and you get such a buzz from it. And I must say, on the esports side, having done some driving for the last year and listened to both the virtual simulated co-drivers and working with some real co-drivers, them co-driving for me, I've definitely developed an appreciation both for my own role, because I've obviously been listening to the other versions of me, but also for drivers being able to process the information that I'm giving them and do something with it in the tiny fractions of a second they've got to do that. It's quite an interesting side to gaming and esports that I'd not appreciated before.
So 2 quick fire questions. Have you ever lost trust in the nut behind the wheel next to you? And secondly, do you get car sick?
So,
and the reason I ask that is that the first thing they say, or when you go on a school trip, the teacher says, don't read at the back of the coach because you'll get travel sick. And that stuck with me for the rest of my life. So how do you read your notes, and do you get sick?
So I will answer the second question first. I've never, ever been car sick in my entire life. I think it's something in my genes, maybe. Even air sick or seasick, I don't suffer from travel sickness, and I can read anything at any time, look at TV screens, never, ever had any problems with that. And in terms of reading the pace notes, you have to read really fast. So people do get affected by it. I tend to be sort of scanning 3 lines at once while I'm reading what I'm giving to the driver. So you have to get really rapid eye movement. They've done some sort of research into that, and your eye movements are just supremely fast, really fast. In terms of driver trust, I have a process about how I select what drivers I compete with, so I don't put myself in the position where I would get in a car with someone that I didn't trust. There's a lot of conversations beforehand. There's testing that you go on beforehand. You usually work together in sort of a road car practicing recce before that. So certainly at this stage in my career, I wouldn't get in a car with someone that I didn't trust. You just have, at the limits we're working at, you just have to have that mutual trust to be able to even perform at any sort of level.
And talking about that trust, looking from the outside in, the drivers have one sort of generic personality type, and the co-drivers tend to have another sort of generic personality type. How do they marry together when you're traveling the world, in convoy together on aeroplanes, hotels, dinner, that kind of stuff? Are you like a married couple that sort of bicker left, right, and centre, or does it work quite well?
It's funny because that is an analogy that is used fairly regularly between drivers and co-drivers, that they're like a married couple. But I wouldn't say necessarily there's bickering going on, but you do tend to develop quite strong relationships and friendships with them, because obviously you do spend so much time together. It's not just the rallies. I mean, WRC is like 14 events per year, but then you've got all the testing on top of that and the traveling. So you tend to develop a friendship there. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of the drivers that I compete with. You sort of have to be. You have to be able to have a laugh with them. Sometimes, for sure, frustrations come through, but I think that's part of a healthy friendship as well as a healthy team. It's how you deal with that that's important. And again, part of that trust between driver and co-driver is the ability to be open and honest and say, hey, we need to sort this out, or this is not quite going how I thought the plan was. And as long as you can have those open and honest conversations between you, then that's the whole reason that it works so well. So yeah, I think the married couple is an analogy that gets overused, but it does kind of work. So yeah, we'll stick with that one.
And carrying on the married couple theme, obviously you've been to all 4 corners of the globe. It's pretty much like going on a honeymoon every other weekend, isn't it? What's your best rally? Where's the best place to rally, if you like, where the fans bring something, because the fans, they congregate along the side of the road, rather them than me, so to speak. But you really get the sense of, I think it was Mexico that you went to recently, a year or 2 ago, and it was fabulous to see the fans all out, and you got that sense that you really were in Mexico, and that sort of that pride came through. Where, as I said, is your favorite rally and your favorite part of the world?
So my favorite rally is quite it's a twofold answer, because my favorite rally in terms of performance, where I feel like I'm working hardest and at my best, is Tour de Corse in Corsica. It's a very, very twisty, challenging event. It's called the Rally of 10,000 Corners, and co-drivers have a full-on workout there. So the rally that I come away from afterwards going, that was a big job, and I loved it, is Tour de Corse. The event that I love the most in terms of just the fact that it's rallying is Rally Finland. I love it. It's fast. It's iconic. The stages are beautiful, and I spent a lot of time in Finland as well. So I would say that was my favorite rally to be at.
And the jumps. The jumps are famous, aren't they? Does your back survive those then?
Sorry?
Does your back survive the jumps?
Yeah. I'm quite lucky. I work hard on my seating position, and like I said, I've done a lot of competition in Finland and testing. So I've kind of learned a few tricks to make sure that you can get around the jumps. And then just going on to your second question, which was, where's my favorite place to rally? It's not necessarily about the rally. I love Australia. Rally Australia is very special to me. It was the first ever WRC event. And I've been there a lot of times to compete, and I've got some very good friends down there. So any opportunity to compete in Australia is always a good one for me.
Good. Moving on we touched on it at the beginning, the esports side of things. I think
Yep.
Chris will want to have some questions, or we'll have some questions lined up here. You've had your success in the real world, but this year, or 2020, I should have said, last year, was a really successful year for you in terms of what you achieved with the RAF, and you won some silverware as well, didn't you?
Yeah. So although I've been a fan of gaming and I've been involved in rallying video games and racing simulators my whole life, really, ever since it's come up. I've never been sort of as embedded in it as I have been in the last year and a half or year because of COVID. And so I decided once the lockdowns had happened that was where I was going to go. And I started by getting involved in a virtual rally championship we set up within Royal Air Force Rallying. And that got quite big, and it did really, really well. We got quite a few competitors. It was competing on the platform Dirt Rally 2.0. And we had a lot of fun with it. And I ended up winning it. So I was Royal Air Force Rally Royal Air Force Rally champion in 2019. In real world rallying, and then I became virtual rally champion with the Royal Air Force in 2020, which was just a great one.
And in terms of the esports, that's with the steering wheel between your hands, isn't it? That's not the co-driving. And the reason I say that is because there is a video out there of you doing some co-driving in the virtual world. So that I didn't know was a thing, and so I was surprised to see that, and that looked really innovative and good fun.
So as we discussed, my sort of primary career in the last few years has been co-driving sort of high level, WRC level, and all over the world. And I recognised that at the current time, we're not going to be getting in a rally car for a while. So we had to find this way of training for when rallying starts again without actually being able to be in a car together. And I'm really fortunate in that I'm good mates with, and I've been doing quite a lot of training with a guy called John Armstrong, who is a former esports world rally champion, and he's really well involved with the Dirt Rally franchise and Codemasters. And so we worked together to develop a way of me co-driving for him in the game via Discord, where we can train, we can practice pace notes together, and we've put some videos up on John's YouTube, which are doing quite well. And it seems like people are interested in them, but it's fascinating to me being able to. Obviously, I enjoy gaming, I enjoy esports, I enjoy competing myself. Like you say, I'm a driver in that respect. But what's really fascinating for me is the ability to use sort of synthetic training, which is like esports and gaming in that respect, to prepare myself for future real world performance, and being able to not have to go out in a rally car, which costs a lot of money and can cost a lot of money, to sort of maintain a baseline level of rally readiness. So this program we've kind of developed, this system we've kind of developed with John, it is quite innovative. I'm not sure anyone had done it beforehand when it emerged in the middle of the summer. And it's got quite a few people interested. And I've seen quite a few people doing it as well, which is quite cool. So maybe that's a future challenge that we could set up.
Yeah, I think that would be a good challenge. So you had plenty of silverware and success in 2020. What did you get for Christmas? A trophy cabinet, or?
I didn't get a trophy cabinet for Christmas.
You might need one.
I got a shed load of socks is what I got for Christmas, but that was fine.
That's always the way. Bit of Links Africa. Yeah, there are other brands.
Standard.
And what does 2021 have in store for you?
I'm really excited about 2021. We've got a lot of things in the pipeline. I'm fully anticipating a return to real world rallying in the WRC. We're really, really close to that, and I just can't wait to get back in a rally car for real. But what's also exciting is carrying forward a lot of the esports stuff that I've been doing in the gaming, because I've actually found a passion for that as well now. And I think that because of the duality of the two, I can train at home, but I can also compete at home in the discipline itself. I think I'd like to carry that forward as well. And it's an emerging thing in the Royal Air Force. We've got a Royal Air Force Esports and Gaming Association who are going from strength to strength. It's seen as a really good welfare opportunity to people who are isolated or separated from their loved ones or their families or their friends. They can communicate over it and play together. So I'm really keen to keep driving that forward, certainly from the motorsport side. And I'm really privileged to be involved in it. So I think for 2021, we're going to get some really cool real world rallying in. We're going to get some really cool virtual rallying in or esports rallying in. And we're going to try and keep building both of them together side by side.
Whilst we're talking about esports, Chris, do you have any questions?
I do. You're doing a very fine job there. I was like waiting for my time to speak. But I think that for me, learning that RAF has kind of an esports activity going on within it is quite cool, because from an outsider's perspective, I would imagine it's quite competitive, within the armed forces or certainly within the RAF. So obviously there's racing games, but are there other games that the different guys are playing that are popular at the moment right now?
So yeah, the Royal Air Force has a video games and esports association, as does the Army and the Navy. The Royal Air Force has quite a good Call of Duty team. They compete in a number of competitions, but I think within the Video Games and Esports Association, there's somebody playing pretty much any game you can think of somewhere, and there's a group of them or a clan or a team that people can join. And like I say, it's part of that sort of collaborative welfare initiative to keep people together via the internet, basically. And the association is going from strength to strength. It's growing every day. We're getting more and more people involved. And it's just quite an exciting time to be involved in that kind of thing.
Are there games like, obviously the obvious ones are flying games. So if you were to, because I know there's a new Microsoft Flight Simulator. I mean, when someone's a pilot or coming from, the RAF, are those things like a total joke? Or do you guys fly those and think, actually, this is pretty accurate? Or what's... Because
I'm not a pilot, so I can't really comment on that. But no. I do know there are guys in the Video Games Association who do fly on various flight simulators for fun, pilots or not, and people do that. And like I say, it's like a shared activity. People sort of collaborate over it. But like I said, there's a broad spectrum of different games, and it's not just because it's the Royal Air Force doesn't necessarily mean it's all air related. And that's quite refreshing. It's nice to have people playing like World of Tanks, for example. I know one of my good friends in the Video Games Association plays World of Tanks a lot. We go out on dirt rally. We've got people doing iRacing. I do know there are people that fly flight sims, including the Microsoft one. So there's lots. We've got the Call of Duty players. We've got RPG players. All sorts of stuff going on. And like I say, it's that community spirit. We've got lots of people chatting by Discord and that sort of thing.
And what's your favourite game?
My favourite game?
Yeah, away from sort of Dirt Rally and the ones we've already mentioned. Is there a Sonic the Hedgehog that creeps in there or something like that?
I have been known to partake in a little bit of Call of Duty from time to time, but I must say I'm so busy at the moment with trying to sort out real world rallying for next year that I'm the only gaming I'm doing at the moment is primarily dropping into Dirt Rally 2.0 and just and that's for fun. That is my relaxation, shall we say, away from the day job, is spending some time on there, putting some stage times in.
Have you played Art of Rally yet? There's a cool game which is like
I've seen sort of, that,
like very arty looking. It's kind of almost like a retro style. It looks amazing.
Unfortunately I haven't played it yet, but I have seen that and I'm quite interested by it. I watched a player playing it on YouTube recently, and I thought that looks cool. I need to get involved with it. The graphics are quite cool. It's got a sort of, like you say, an art kind of feel, a bit cartoonish, but not really like, it seems to play quite well as well. So I'm gonna have a go at that later on. But like I say, when I've got some time, I'm hoping that things will settle down in the next month or so. We'll have a program together, and I can get back to some non-simulator based rallying, shall we say.
I think for me the most fun rally game was Sega Rally. Do you ever play that? That was a classic back in the day.
I've played that on the real simulators,
on the arcades.
Yes. On the arcades. Oh no,
integral part of my school trip playing Sega Rally. Every school trip that was the one you'd find. No, I have played that, and you know what,
you could get lost in that, and you could, if it was coin operated, some of them were and some of them weren't. I think the coin operated ones, I hate to think how much money I put in there as a kid.
Three stages, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was good. I absolutely loved it, and it was sort of an aggregate time. So if you made a Horlicks at the first stage, you just knew you were never going to capture that back.
No.
Yeah,
and there was the iconic Lancia Delta, wasn't it, in there? And another one which was like that.
Supra. It was the Castrol Toyota, wasn't it? The other one
Corolla,
of the cars.
I think.
Is that the like
Corolla.
sleek looking one with the lights at the front?
Yeah. Corolla, that was it. Yeah.
Oh, it might have been the Celica. I can't remember, but yes, definitely Sega Rally is that's the dream, isn't it? One day,
that's the pinnacle.
Doesn't everyone secretly want a Sega Rally arcade machine in their house somewhere?
What dreams are made of?
How do you go about? It just boggles me with rally. I'm just as an outsider that when you see the footage of people just pelting it down a snowy dirt path, or like how do you do that sort of thing? I don't understand how you do it. It's just madness, total madness.
So the simple answer is we roll up to the start line and someone goes go, and then everything happens. But the reality is behind every rally there's weeks and weeks of preparation, particularly a high level. And we develop a pace note system where we can communicate to each other in sort of shorthand. We do a lot of setup on the car, make sure the car's exactly how we want it. Although sometimes there are compromises because different stages of different events are different. But what looks like 3 minutes of absolute chaos on the television is actually probably about a year's worth of effort and work behind the scenes. I mean, Tom's probably nodding in the background because he knows what that's all about. But and again, it comes down to, as I talked about, that bond between the driver and the co-driver, but then that also extends out to the bond between the driver, the co-driver, and the team, because behind the scenes there are innumerable people helping you out. You've got mechanics who are getting muddy, dirty, underneath a hot car, fixing the stuff that you might have bent on the last stage. There's the lorry drivers who drive the cars halfway across the world and all the tents and all the equipment. And then there's the caterers who've flown halfway across the world to pick up those kitchen bits to cook you dinner in a tent in the Arctic. There's so many people behind the scenes.
The bit that gets me, when you have a crash, let's say you're in a Formula One car at Barcelona, and you have your shunt and you jump out and you're okay. You jump on a moped, on the back of a moped, and you're back into the hospitality within 5 minutes, and you can have a rub down and some food and a drink. If you have a shunt in the middle of a stage, you might be marooned wherever you are in the middle of the wilderness for till every single car, and there's lots of cars after the WRC cars have gone through that stage, so you might be stuck there for like 4 hours. It could be like 30 degrees. You're in the middle of nowhere. How do you cope with that? Because I'd probably have a panic attack.
Well, my record is about 9 hours being stuck in the backwoods of Portugal, because they had to basically crane our car out. But how do you deal with that? Well, it's like a mentality thing. Rallying is a little bit different to racing. It's out in the backwoods. You kind of go in there with the anticipation that you might have to be there
survive
for a bit.
Literally.
But I've always been an outdoors type person. I do a lot of sort of ultra length trail running and
climbed Everest.
I did not climb Everest, but I went to Everest. I climbed Space Camp.
Well, go with climbing Everest.
No,
even if it's base camp.
Not to the top. Yeah, just
I can't possibly claim that. But
I've been to Everest.
I did trek to Everest Base Camp, which is high enough for me at the time being, to be honest. And one of my good friends did attempt to summit. But yeah, I'm into mountaineering. I really enjoy spending my time in the snow and the type 2 fun. A lot of my friends call it type 2 fun, the stuff that you enjoy after you've done it, not while you're doing it. And being in the forces, being in the Royal Air Force, that gives you sort of a tolerance to adversity. So we say they sort of help you generate that mentality where you've got a positive mental attitude and you can sort of deal with most things and how to break stuff down and overcome obstacles. So I think I kind of got that background from both sides, the outdoor stuff and the Royal Air Force. And so when you are kind of abandoned in the middle of nowhere, and it does happen. I mean, sometimes they can't shut the stage down just for you. You've got to wait for all the cars to go through, and that can be hours and hours. And then once they've got to you, sometimes it's your fault. You've stuck the car down a ravine. They can't get it out easily. It's going to need a crane. You could be there for several hours, and you just got to get on with it. And you always take coats in the car if it's cold. You've got hats and gloves if it's cold. If it's hot, you make sure you've got water. I always put a snack in my bag. It's just preparation beforehand to make sure that if you do get stuck, you're not
make friends
really
with the locals.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, some of the locals have been fantastic, and some of the rally fans are the best in the world because they'll just help you out. There are rules. You're not supposed to get helped if you're still competing, but if you're out, they'll help you. I've had sandwiches given by them, drinks. I've had a beer by the side of one of the stages when we were off, because sometimes you're just like, they're like, that's clearly not going any further. There's no wheels left on it. May as well have may as well have a beer while we wait for the next thing to go on. And it's because obviously you're not going to drive the rest of the day.
But... you've emphasised that about 3 times now.
I know. It's important to emphasise.
I think it's this way.
No, it's important to emphasise. But the fans are fantastic, and they will always help you. And I've been sat up in, like I say, in Chile, for example. They've set a little fire up by the side of the stage. They're cooking the sausages, and someone offers you a sausage sandwich or whatever. Just because you're there and you're looking a bit cold and miserable. So yeah, rally fans, fantastic people.
And when you go to the shops with the missus or go out with your friends, are you always muttering the 20 degrees left and second turn left and right?
I must say I don't, but I have when I do navigate, I do get frustrated sometimes when people don't follow exactly where I'm saying, because I'll say, like, you need to be in the middle lane then, and then 200 yards later they still haven't got in the middle lane. I'll be like, you need to be in the middle lane, because I'm used to, like, the drivers, when I'm with the drivers and we're navigating on the road sections and stuff, you just say we need to be in the middle lane and they'll just do it because it's that's just the way it is.
And some of the road sections are vast, aren't they? We're not talking just a 10-minute run from one end of the forest to the next. You can be on the road for hours.
Yeah, I mean, the longest ones I've done are sort of in Corsica, 3.5 hours over the mountains.
And everyone's staring at you because you're in sort of a fire-breathing, sort of noise-spitting machine that's just raring to go.
And they're not the most comfortable beast. It's not like a luxurious car that you can sort of waft along in. It's like a race car. It's rattling and banging. And
the police are there to catch you out as well, aren't they? They're always...
It depends. Some places the police are you have to just make sure you're playing by the rules, to be honest. The police, they do pay attention to you because you draw attention to yourself. But in other places, the police are really good. They'll close off junctions for you. They'll give you escorts in and out of city centres. It just depends on I think their view of how the rally is and the perception of it.
Was it the Welsh police that pulled Gronholm over when he had 3 wheels on his wagon one year at Rally GP?
He was
sparks coming out the back of the car.
He was adamant he could continue on 3 wheels, and the Welsh police said, probably quite fairly, no, you haven't got. That's not going to work, is it?
Not on our road.
That's quite an iconic piece of footage, really. But going back to the road sections, I mean, I'll drive some road sections. I mean, it's a very physical activity to drive the rally car, and that's one of the nice things about esports is there's no road sections. You just go straight from stage to stage to stage.
That's the thing is, and I'd be constantly as the co-driver thinking don't kill anyone because they're all standing on the bends, and you just think, man, if you slid or something. I guess
these days the in the past, yes, rally fans have been very close to the stages, but these days, actually, the WRC promoter has done a fantastic job of sort of re-energizing the WRC, and part of that has been a comprehensive overhaul of the spectator management. So people can still get really close to the action, but the way where they place the spectator areas is much more thought out and much more clearly delineated. So you can still see, but you're not in necessarily an unsafe place.
It used to be like the parting of the Red Sea in some countries, didn't it? Where they were literally on the road and then they would fan out as the car came along.
No, I mean, it's not like that anymore. But some places, for example, in Mexico, you look up and there's just people everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. Granted, they're not right by the side of the road, but you look up the side of a rock face and there's just guys like perched up there, and you're thinking, first of all, how did you get up there? And second of all, how long have you been up there? Because I know there's no other way into this stage than from this way.
And can you get down?
And can you get down? But the Mexican fans were phenomenal. We went down through, there's some tunnels under Guanajuato, and it was just the most atmospheric place I've been. Yeah, again, the fans are fantastic, but we don't have the parting of the waves anymore. That's very 80s, and probably for the best, to be honest.
Good stuff. Well, listen, Phil, you've been a fabulous guest on Chilling With here on First 11's platform. And as with all our guests, you're going to set a little challenge, aren't you? And your challenge is going to be driving a stage somewhere around the world from one of the iconic rallies. Tell us what your challenge is going to be.
So my plan, what I'm going to challenge you to do, is to drive a stage from Rally Monte Carlo on Dirt Rally 2.0, which obviously Rally Monte Carlo is happening this weekend. And I'm going to drive it in the car that I won the Royal Air Force Virtual Rally Championship in, which is the Audi Quattro Group B car. I'm going to set a time, and if you can beat me, that's great, basically.
We get a big thumbs up.
Yeah, you get a big thumbs up.
Very cool. Listen, it's fantastic to have you on, and it's fascinating just to obviously learn all about your adventures in the car, in the gaming world, and beyond that. So yeah, hope to many more challenges to come, hopefully, as well.
I hope so. Been great to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, from myself, Tom Gaymore, and one of First 11's creators, Chris Clancy. Phil, you've been a fabulous guest. We look forward to your challenge. I'm going to try and have a go at beating it as well. But for now, best of luck with 2021. And no doubt we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.